Opinions, opinions, opinions. Yes, we all have opinions. We've all heard the saying, opinions are like a-holes, everybody's got one. And I don't expect everyone to have the same opinion as me, because I certainly don't have the same opinion as other people. I mean, what a boring world that would be. But anyway, I watched a video today on a YouTuber's channel, which I'm not going to say their name, and I'm not going to say the name of their channel, but I wanted to get on here and talk about it, because in my opinion, it's getting kind of out of hand and kind of ridiculous. Okay, this woman, I'm going to call her Miss M. She literally picks apart Shanann Watts, on every single aspect of Shanann's life, trying to diagnose her, a person she doesn't know, a person that she's never met, and she's trying to diagnose her and accuse her of having a pretty serious mental illness. And in my opinion, the fact that she does this, she loses all credibility with me. Because what kind of a professional would claim to be able to diagnose a person over social media or their text messages? What sense does that make? And also, of course, she also claims now that she gets attacked for her opinions and for merely discussing a true crime case, which in my opinion, she uses the word her opinion as an excuse to be able to rip this lady apart, to criticize her and to critique her and basically trash this lady that was murdered along with her children. In one of her videos, she's discussing a Facebook post that Shanann made, being at a doctor's office, and the fact that she was checked in with 3 other people. And it was just a Facebook post, so clearly we all know that in your Facebook post, you can tag people or check in with people who aren't actually with you. We usually do this so it'll show up in their feed so they can know what's going on as well. But of course, in my opinion, the reason Miss M does this is, to fit her theory that Shanann Watts was not allowed to be alone with her children and always had to have supervision. And I find that absolutely ridiculous, because clearly the 5 days a week that Chris works, when he leaves for work, she's alone with her children. I mean, she's the one that has to get them up and get them ready for school and drive them to school. And I'm sure that some days the children are sick and have to stay home with her. And I know Chris rarely took off work. So yeah, it was pretty obvious that Shanann was the one at home with them. And even the aspect of her maybe only, being alone with her or being alone with the children a couple hours in the morning. In my opinion, if you're going to accuse someone of not being able to be alone with their children, then they're not going to be allowed to be alone with their children ever. You can't have it both ways. You can't just say she's not allowed to be alone with her children except in the morning time and to drive them to school. In my opinion, I think that's absolute BS. And she also makes the accusation that Shanann, or maybe she asked it in question form, is she allowed to seek medical attention alone with her children, or does she have to have permission or someone with her? Something along those lines. And I don't understand the point of her going on and on about the whole Munchausen by proxy. I don't know how many videos she's made about it, but it's almost like she's trying to drive home this point that she's trying to make, that Shanann has this mental illness that she was never even diagnosed with. And if you're going to discuss a true crime case, why do you not discuss every angle of this case? Because if Shanann was abusing the children, don't you think that Chris Watts would have stood up to protect his children, regardless if you believe that she was abusing Chris as well? Do you really think he would stand on the sidelines and let her abuse their children? I mean, if this abuse was really going on, wouldn't Chris want to stand up and protect his children? I don't think he would just sit on the sidelines and let Shanann do whatever she wanted in the form of abuse. I just don't. The comments that Miss M makes, it literally reminds me of a vulture picking the bones of its prey completely dry. Completely dry. Miss M comments about Shanann was happy about finding a specialist for the children. So, and as if that was so terrible, she says, "Can you believe that?" Well, yeah, I can believe that, because if your child is sick and the doctor, does not know what's going on with your child, you would want to seek out a specialist. And she did just that. She got in touch with a GI doctor for Cece, and thank God she did. This is the appointment, or the time frame, that Cece was diagnosed with EOE, which is actually eosinophilic esophagitis. Hopefully I didn't mess that entire word up too terribly, but I'll just refer to it as EOE. And to even be diagnosed with this disease, there are testing that has to be done. So there's no way Shanann could fake this kind of testing. Only a specialist and a doctor can diagnose a child with this. And I know that there was a claim that the children had acid reflux, and acid reflux is also a symptom of EOE. And the type of testing that has to be done is a scope test. They have to do an endoscopy to be able to tell if your child has this or not. And there's also a whole list of corresponding foods that affect this type of illness. And there's a whole list of foods to avoid that can make the illness worse. She goes over a lot of the children's doctor's visits that Shanann would post on her Facebook. And what I don't understand is a lot of these things that Shanann posts about and the illnesses that her children have are hard to be faked. Most of the illnesses that the children are illnesses that have to be tested for. I mean, just about all of them, they either have an obvious need or they require testing for a diagnosis. I mean, you can't fake breathing issues. You can't fake the croup. You can't fake pneumonia. You can't fake so many ear infections that you need tubes in your ears. You can't fake a clogged tear duct. Give me a break. She's always saying, research, people, research. Well, Miss M, why don't you do some research on these illnesses that Shanann said her children had? They're illnesses that had to be diagnosed by a doctor, which in turn is the reason that she was so protective over her children, because they actually did have these allergies. And along with these certain types of illnesses comes with a lot of doctor visits. And on the subject of Munchausen by proxy, in my opinion, a mother with Munchausen by proxy would have let Cece eat some of that ice cream at her in-laws' house and let her go into anaphylactic shock. I mean, hey, that would be more attention for Shanann, wouldn't it? And for whatever reason, Miss M doesn't believe the children have any allergies at all. In fact, she mocked Shanann whenever she was describing Cece's anaphylactic shock, stating that I don't think those are actually even the symptoms that come along with it, which actually they are, if you look it up, if you research like you're so fond of doing and suggesting others do. The symptoms of anaphylactic shock are skin irritation, such as hives, difficulty swallowing, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, swollen tongue or lips, wheezing, difficulty breathing. So yeah, she did actually have those same symptoms, ma'am. What is so hard for you to at least look that up to see if she was even close to the right reaction, because clearly she was. And the fact that in the same post Miss M makes, she acts like it was a smoking gun whenever she thought it was odd that Chris said that Cece was allergic to almonds. Which no, it wasn't. She went into anaphylactic shock because she ate cashews. At the same time, Chris, in his interview with the police, talked about Cece going into anaphylactic shock eating cashews. So no, there wasn't a discrepancy. He didn't say almonds. They both said cashews. I mean, look it up, people, if you have questions. Guess what? Google is free. So in my opinion, I don't agree with the fact that she states that Shanann had Munchausen by proxy. Was she an overprotective mother? Yeah, probably. But from my own experience, caring for a child with asthma and allergies, you have to be very protective. I mean, they're young, they can't protect themselves, and they're susceptible to all sorts of reactions if they get something that they are allergic to. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that she had a meltdown. I mean, or a nut meltdown, as Miss M calls it. I mean, she can't even trust her own family to give the kids something that they're not allergic to. Maybe before you want to accuse a murdered mother of abuse or murdering her children herself, why don't you yourself do some researches on these topics that you're presenting? Because clearly you have not, because you're wrong. So to call Shanann Watts a liar, you have to also call the doctors who made the diagnosis liars as well. Because like I said, most, if not all of these illnesses required testing. You cannot fake a test done by a doctor or a nurse. They require testing to get a diagnosis. It's that simple. No, Shanann wasn't perfect. She wasn't a saint, but she was a victim, and so were her children. And I don't care how long Miss M has been researching or discussing this case, it still doesn't give her any right to be so disrespectful and critical and criticize this lady and critique her every move.